Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we are going to be talking about every book that I read in the month of February. And February was the most amazing reading month. I read 12 books. I'm pretty proud of myself for that. I honestly thought that I was going to read way less than that because also February is the shortest month, but I really blew my mind with reading 12. I then have kind of gotten to a reading slump after that, so that's kind of a little annoying, but I'm still going to be proud of my 12 books that I read in February. So the month of February, I actually didn't read any physical copies of books. I only listened to audiobooks and read on my Kindle. I've definitely been in my Kindle era recently. My Kindle, let me actually show you because it looks so cute. I recently got a clear case for it and stickers and a pop socket, and I'm kind of obsessed. I don't know if it's blurry or not, but it's so cute. It reflects my personality so well. The pop socket has little pink bows, and I'm obsessed. If you have a Kindle and you don't have a clear case with stickers, what are you doing? Because buying stickers for this was the most fun I've had in a really long time. So maybe that makes me lame, but I'm obsessed with this. So with that being said, I've been obsessed with reading on my Kindle recently. So that's why I read literally no physical copies of books this month. The first book I read this month was Flirtation or Face Off by Leah Brunner. I think it's pronounced Brunner. And it was so cute. So this is the third book in the DC Eagles series. And so the series follows a hockey team, and each book, the lead is a different member of the hockey team, player on the hockey team. And these books are really cute. I really have enjoyed reading this series. The second book I read was the next book in the series, which is Betrothal or Breakaway. And so I'll just talk about them both at the same time. But they're both really cute. It's a closed door hockey romance, which are kind of hard to come by, honestly. But they're really just sweet reads. I really enjoyed both of these books. The tropes are really fun. The first one, Flirtation or Face Off, is kind of enemies to lovers. Well, the girl hates the main guy, but the main guy actually loves the main girl. He's been in love with her, so that's really cute. And then the second one is Marriage of Convenience and Childhood Friends to Lovers, which is really fun. Single Parent, which I don't usually like, but just it worked for this book. But I'd highly recommend this series. I actually got an arc for the last book that is coming out next month, and I read that. Did I read that this month? No. I did read it this month, so I didn't read it in February. So you're not going to hear about this book until my March reading wrap up. But it was really good, and I felt so honored to get an arc. But I rated Flirtation or Face Off 4 stars, and Betrothal or Breakaway 4.25 stars, and highly recommend both of them. Loved them. So cute. Next, I read The Match by Sarah Adams, and I was so excited to finally get to this book. It was one of my books that I said I was definitely going to read in 2025. I have 25 books that I was I'm definitely going to read this year, and The Match was on it. And I love Sarah Adams, and I love her writing to death. She's one of my favorite authors. And so I hadn't really read her older books, only her newer ones. And so I was really excited to get this one. This one just came out last year, I think. And so I have the physical copy of it. I actually listened to it on audio, which I really enjoyed. I liked it on audio a lot. It was really cute. This book actually had a lot of tropes that I don't usually love. So single parent, age gap, which are two that I honestly stay away from because they're just not usually my favorite. But once again, it really worked for this book, and it had a great disability rep. the main character has epilepsy. She has a service dog, and that's like a huge storyline. She works for a company that helps like match people that need service dogs with dogs, and so that was a really cool aspect of the story, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I highly recommend it. I rated that 4 stars. The next 2 books are 2 of my favorite books that I read this month, and they are the 4th and 5th book of the Boys of Tommen series. If you watched my last video, you would know that I'm absolutely obsessed with this series. It's my new favorite series. I could spend the rest of this video talking about it. I won't. I'm going to limit it because I'm talking about a lot of books in this video, so I don't want it to be super long. But these books were so good. I will say they were not my like favorite books of the series. The 5th book, which is Redeeming Six, the 4th book, which is Redeeming Six, was one of the hardest books I have ever read. It was so depressing and so long, so it was just so much depressing content. It was phenomenal, fantastic, but extremely, extremely heavy. I had to pause in the middle of it to kind of give myself a little bit of a break. But it was fantastic, and the main characters of that book are Joey and Aoife, and I absolutely adore them. Taming Seven is the 5th book of the series, and I sadly was really disappointed by this book. It honestly pains me to say that. I have, from starting Binding 13, I was absolutely obsessed with the character Gibbsy, and Taming Seven is from his perspective, and so I was just waiting to get to his book, and I was let down by it, and I'm so sad by it. I still rated it 2.5 stars. I still loved it, but I honestly can't go into a whole lot of why it kind of let me down because it would be spoilers, but it just kind of let me down. And so I think that's like a common theme. I've seen that a lot from a lot of different people. I think a lot of readers just had a different expectation of what we thought the book was going to be going into it, and it was just not what Chloe Walsh wrote, and that's okay. But I still love Gibbsy. He's still one of my favorite characters, and getting to have a book from his perspective was just great in general. And I also rated Redeeming Six 4.5 stars. I have my computer with me because I cannot remember what I rate books to save my life, so that's why I have this with all my ratings on it, because it's certainly not up here. Next, I read Finley Donovan is Killing It, and I listened to this one on audio, and I rated it 4 stars. It was a really cute, like, fast-paced read. It is about this girl who is a writer, and she goes to, like, meet with, like, her publisher to talk about her newest, like, murder mystery novel, and the lady next to her in the Panera Bread where they're meeting thinks that she's talking about actually killing someone, but main character, Finley Donovan, is just talking about her book that she's writing. And so this lady is like, I'm going to pay you and like hire you to kill someone. And Finley Donovan is like, oh, I don't actually kill people. But it ended up being this big old tangled web of Finley Donovan accidentally inserting herself into this murder. And it's really funny. It was like not scary at all. Usually I don't love like cozy mysteries. I don't even know if that would be classified as this, but like mysteries that aren't like actually like intense. Like I read Dial A for Aunties a few years ago, and that was another book where like someone like accidentally gets murdered, and it's like very silly, and I just didn't like it. If I'm gonna read, I guess if I'm gonna read about a murder, I want it to like be scary. I don't know, but I did enjoy this book. I don't know if I would have necessarily loved it as much if I had read it, but listening to it was really good because I loved the narrator. Next, with another Sarah Adams book, I read The Off Limits Rule, and I rated that 4.5 stars, and I loved this book. Like, loved it. I also listened to it on audio, and it was so good. This book is another single parent trope, but it's also brother's best friend, which I love. I love both brother's best friend and best friend's brother. And once again, single parent worked for this book. Maybe I like Single Parent. The book follows the main character moving back home after living away from home for a while, and she ends up just realizing she needs to be back near her family again. And so she moves back in, her and her son with her brother, and all of her brother's friends have always, like, she's always not liked them. And so he goes, like, they both go to hang out with one of his friends, and then she ends up really liking this friend of his. And it's really just a cute story, typical, like, they, can't date because the brother is going to be mad at them dating, but it was really cute and loved it on audio also. Next, I read Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. So it's the second book in the Finley Donovan series. And I also listened on audio, and it was really cute. Once again, it's just kind of a continuation of the first book. So I can't like say a whole lot about it without, giving spoilers, but also really enjoyed it. They're super engaging, like fast-paced books. So if you're looking for a good audiobook that doesn't take like a lot of brain power and it's going to be quick, they're not very long, I would highly recommend this series. I want to continue and read the rest of them or listen to the rest of them. I just haven't yet, but they're definitely, that's on my TBR because I really enjoyed them, and they're like funny but also really sweet. The main character, Finley Donovan, her best friend, who is her kid's nanny, have like a really sweet friendship, and that's one of my honestly favorite aspects of the book too. Then for some odd reason, I was like really in a fantasy mood. No idea why, because this is not the time of year that I'm usually in a fantasy mood. I typically only stay in a fantasy mood like fall, but I guess it was February, but in my mind, it's summer. I'm already in the summer mindset, so that's what really made me surprised I was in the mood for a fantasy, but I was. And I decided to pick up Heartless Hunter, even though my best friend literally hated this book and told me to never read it. Um, Everyone else that's ever read it has rated it 5 stars, so I decided to trust everyone else and read it, and then I ended up really liking it. So I rated it 4.5 stars, and it was really cool. It's like forbidden romance, enemies to lovers, typical fantasy stuff, and it's about a witch who no one knows she's a witch. Like, witches are hunted, and she like has to like use her magic secretly, and she like helps save the other witches that are getting like, you know, sent to prison for being a witch. And then she like falls in love with her main witch hunter, like the main, he has a name that I'm forgetting, but like the big witch hunter. And so she knows that he's hunting her, but he doesn't know that she is the one that he's hunting. Really good. So if you're in the mood for a good young adult fantasy, highly recommend. And by a shocking turn of events, the last 3 books I read in the month of February were all nonfiction. I know. I'm also stunned. The first one I read was Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar. And I grew up watching 19 Kids and Counting, and I thought they were a really fun family to watch. And I have like followed along with their story and what's gone on in the past many years in their family. And so I was very interested to read Ginger's book, and I really loved it. It was not, she makes it very clear, it's like not a tell all on her family. But she just really talks about how she's really had to navigate through her faith, and unlearning a lot of harmful things that she learned in her childhood, but ultimately realizing that the foundation of her faith, being the Lord, really like brought her through her childhood. And so it was a really sweet book, and I just loved hearing her testimony, and I highly recommend it. The next book I read was Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar, and this book was definitely more of a telling of Jill growing up in the Duggar family, definitely more of a memoir. And I also really enjoyed this one. It was a hard read because if you know anything about the Duggars, they have gone through a lot in their life, especially Jill being one of the oldest in the family. And so it was definitely really sad, but she always points back to Christ, which I loved. And so also really highly recommend this one too. The last book I read this month was The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. And if you know anything about Sherry Frankie, she's the oldest child in the Frankie family, and they were family vloggers for years, known as the 8 Passengers. And they ended up having a really big scandal a few years ago. and I never like closely followed along with their family. I knew of them just being big family vloggers, but I didn't necessarily watch them a ton. But I was really interested to hear from Sherry's point of view because I know that she doesn't have contact with her family anymore. So I wanted to read her book, and I really enjoyed it. It was, once again, like the last book, a really hard read just from the things she went through in her life. But I was just really encouraged by her strength and her holding on to her faith. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. All three of those nonfiction books were all narrated by the author, which I absolutely love. So I would recommend any of them. That was every book that I read in the month of February. And let me know what your favorite book that you read in February. And let me know if we read any of the same things or if you've read any of the books that I've read. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.